Hello and welcome to another show of Today at United. My name is Hader and I'm your host today. I'm delighted to be joined by two fantastic guests to talk about, well, I guess transfer news because that's all we're talking about these days. But also just to bring a little bit of perspective because you know what, guys? Man United are back tomorrow. One more sleep before we see our amazing club play again. And I don't know about you, but I'm absolutely buzzing. So without further ado, let me welcome my guest today, Ciaran. How you doing today, mate?
I'm doing good. Just one more day until the actual football starts again. So excited for that anyway.
Absolutely. And Neil, welcome back. Second time we're working together again this week. It's a pleasure to have you back on the show. How are you doing today, mate?
Very well. One more day of the sweats when you get worried about the first game of the season. But yeah, probably won't sleep tonight. It'll be a bit like Christmas Eve. You know.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Guys, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We've got so much great content coming every single week. Morning, Mark. Nice to see you here, mate. Guys, make sure you get your comments in as well because I want you guys to interact. I want you guys to ask the guys questions. I want you to give your opinions. Even if you disagree, that's fine. That's what it's about. We all have different opinions. We all love United and we all want to see United doing well. So the more comments, the more opinions, the better. But before I move on to the transfer news, I want to get your guys' opinions on Ollie's presser summary because obviously there was one this morning. I'm not sure if everyone caught it, but I found a really great little review on it. So I'm just going to go through it and guys, chuck your opinions in the comments and I'll come to the boys after as well on their opinions. But the first point is that Ollie defended Greenwood. I think that's massive. For me, it feels like the Sir Alex sort of siege mentality, which we had England versus United. And I love that personally. You know, that's the most important thing. United first, England second. Sorry to anyone that disagrees with that. He also said he wishes to bring in new faces, which I think cuts down this agenda that's been flowing around on Twitter, which I'll let the boys discuss. He also throws England and the FA under the bus, which is very interesting. And you saw, obviously, with Greenwood. I'll let Ciaran expand on that a little bit later. He says Van der Beek, Pogba and Bruno can play together. So that's a great thing to hear. I think that's a very, very talented midfield. We'll talk about whether that midfield can actually defensively cope, perhaps, in the Premier League. He praises David De Gea, which I think is a nice thing as well. We all know De Gea had a rocky season, but it's interesting to see how he plays this year. And he lashes out at the media for spreading negativity about the players. We don't need to go into what sort of negativity we've seen this summer regarding our players. And finally, the most important thing is he's backed the fans for keeping expectations high and demanding more. And that is very important. So I just want to say thanks to at the Ferguson Co, because it's his summary. I don't want to take someone's work without crediting them. But let's go on, Ciaran, and I'm going to talk to you. What are your views on Ollie's presser?
Yeah, look, I think the important thing is because everybody seems to be hungry for signings, that he's mentioned that, yes, they need to strengthen the team, and also that for the squad that they need to be able to stick together. The one thing that, and I said this on one of my tweets, that I love what he said because he's backing he's backing the players he has. He's admitting that, yes, there needs to be strengthening of the squad. The problem is that I've seen people will say that they want a Mourinho character in there to attack the Glazers and to say that we need all these new players. It's not good enough, blah, 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 blah. But for me, he's saying that, but in a more respectful way. And for people to say that they would prefer to have a Mourinho character in there that are going to directly attack the Glazers and Woodward, to me is ludicrous because you want that dressing room at the start of the season to be working in the same direction. If you have a manager that's going to come out and attack your ownership, attack your group of players and say that they're not happy with the group, then you're already on a back foot starting the season. And something that's always annoyed me, that people think that the way Mourinho goes about it is correct, because when he said that last season, or his last season, and he was fed up that he had to start a bunch of kids in the preseason, I don't think people realize how much of a negative effect that had on some of the young players coming through. I know from talking to many people that would be that would have contacts within the kind of youth team, where they were saying that players wanted to leave after they heard that. Mason Greenwood was one of them that wasn't going to sign a contract under Jose Mourinho. I heard someone say that his parents were really upset about what happened, and a lot of the other players as well. So for people to say that a manager should attack the dressing room at the start of a season, it's crazy to me. And I think the way Ollie has done it's correct. He said he trusts the players that he has right now, but that he also needs strengthening of the squad. You can call out the ownership without being disrespectful. And I think that's what he's done. And I think fans need to get behind that and stop calling him a Glazer puppet because he says he's happy with his squad. Because if he says his squad's not good enough, you're going to have the same thing what people are going to say about the likes of Chelsea with bringing in all these new players, that there's a lot of players that Lampard thinks aren't good enough. You really need the manager to back, but also know that strengthening is required too.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic assessment, Ciaran. And Joe, morning, mate. Joe's one of our hosts. He says really positive press conference and wants the fans to expect more from him and the players. That's quality. That's the point, isn't it? You can expect more from Ollie. You can expect more from the players. You can expect more from the club, but you don't have to descend into name calling and abuse. Neil, I'm going to pass it over to you. And Ray's got a comment here. Morning, Ray. Ollie's showing Mourinho how it should be done. Talk to me, Neil, because I know you've got strong views on this.
It's saying my mic is muted.
Yeah, for some reason. Don't worry, mate. Go on. Sorry,
I can't believe fans are interested in getting Mourinho back or a character like that. I think he's an absolute dinosaur. It was a joke to get him in the first place. It was just to play a bit of a battle with Pep and Mourinho in Manchester and all that sort of. It was always going to end the way it did, and Spurs will end the way it did at Man United. It's already started. That's what Mourinho does. He does 3 years. Ollie's in a sort of, the fans love Ollie, and the fans that don't like Ollie, they can move on to another club as far as I'm concerned. I was Ollie in, Ollie out, but he proved it to me. He changed my view that he's the manager to move us forward. I've got fans have got short memories. Under Ferguson, we won everything for 20 years. Everything. That will never happen in my lifetime again. My dad said to me, and he's nearly 80, and he said, we'll never see the like of this again. So this is back to what's sort of normal. We're battling at the moment. The club's battling. It's battling with the press. It's battling with its own fans. I personally believe that the Glazers will, have given the money to the managers over the years. You can only see the amount of much money that's been wasted.
Yeah, 1.2 million, isn't it? 1.2 billion, sorry, Neil. That's a massive amount, isn't it? Yeah,
it's a massive amount of money. And the money they gave Mourinho, the money they gave Moyes, look at some of the junk they bought. And we're still paying for that. Ollie's, we've got so much junk that needs to be got rid of. I mean, we talked about this in the show the other day. And that's hard. We're always the top of the league for agents' fees, transfer fees, and wages. We're always in the top 1 or 2. So it's clear that we've always spent money and always spent money on wages and bought some junk as well, to be fair. I could have researched that and I'd still be researching it now. So the amount of money we've wasted on players is ridiculous. But it's not our money. The only way the Glazers will get a return on their investment is if the club are successful on the pitch. And that's a fact. Because one day they will sell the club. Whether it's my lifetime, your lifetime, but one day the club will change hands. I wish the club was run the way like a Munich is run or a Barcelona are run or something like that owned by the fans. I'd love the club to be run that way. I just don't see it with the amount of money that's in the English game that they'll do that. But for God's sake, get off. Either support the club or go.
Yeah, that's Neil. Fantastic. Thank you. Because that needs to be said. Look, we all know what the deficiencies are in the squad. We're very well aware. We've been hearing about it every day. And people are entitled to say that. There's nothing wrong with that. You can say I'm happy with the first 11 and I'm excited for the game. You can also say with a caveat, but we need more additions. And that's what Ollie's done. But to say I'm not in love with the club anymore, because I've seen that, or I don't want to watch United anymore. Well, you know what? We're better off without fans like that who are part-time fans who are here for the good times and not here for the bad times. But what I will say, and I think Ray agrees with you, Neil. So that's brilliant. Thanks, Ray. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for getting involved. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and keep getting involved, guys. Honestly, this is we really want to hear your thoughts. We really want to hear what you have to say about United. But Ciaran, before we go on to a few more transfers, Neil touches on a really important point there about those wages. I know you've done a little bit of research, so you're able to give the listeners a bit more of an insight into why we can't shift the players, because that essentially is the problem, right? United need to sell in order to bring more players in. As Neil said, we've been sitting on top of the tree when it comes to wages. And when you look at sort of wage to contribution, it's ridiculous. Liverpool's is lower, Man City's is lower. We're just out of control. We're giving average players, as Neil says, junk, deadwood, etc. We're giving them huge wages to sit on the bench and just do nothing.
Yeah, look, it's the reason we can't sell players for a profit, because there's players on crazy wages. When you have Phil Jones on whatever it is, 140, 150 grand a week, he would be an excellent championship player or lower kind of Premier League player, but no team is going to want to bring him in and have to double their entire wage bill just to fit Phil Jones in. It's the same when we had Alexis Sanchez come in, where the reason why that was such a bad move was because it allowed other players to request higher wages. Like, you would have players like, you could have Ashley Young, Phil Jones, Chris Smalling, that they could be asking for increasing their wages that might be a fifth of what Alexis Sanchez was on. And this was the biggest problem that was happening. When Ollie came into the club, there was 10 players that were on expiring contracts. Now, the ones that we all think about are Ander Herrera, because he ended up leaving. But the problem is the club actually went, and it seems like they went and tried to re-sign the likes of Ashley Young, Phil Jones, just to kind of tick the box so that they didn't have to kind of work on that. Because really, if you're losing 10 players at the end of a season, it's pretty much like half a squad, and they didn't want to do that. But the problem is their priorities were in the wrong places. We would have saved so much more money by just letting those contracts expire, and even if you have to spend money on somebody else, you're still saving it on all those huge deals. Now we have the likes of Phil Jones, who we can't get rid of because he's on such a high wage. What really annoys me is that people used to complain before the Glazers were in, when Roy Keane and the likes of David Beckham went and asked for higher wages after they won the treble. And people criticized them in the papers. They tried to make them as scapegoats for the next season. But those players deserve to actually request those wages. Now we see it happen every single year. Players and players' agents are asking for increases in wages every single year. And the problem is, for years, United gave it to them. Like, the simple example that I always think about is Brandon Williams. He only signed a deal last year, right? And it's a year on, and now he signed a new deal. I find it very hard to believe that Brandon Williams was going in, knocking at the door, asking for huge wage increases when he had just signed a deal last year. I think it's the problem that we have is the negotiators. And I mentioned this to you haters. What happens if I expect that within the next year, Mason Green would probably get a new deal. And look, he probably deserves to be on higher wages based on his productivity, but he only signed a 4-year deal last year. So let's just say he starts earning more than 100K per week this year at 19. If that's a 5-year deal, when he's, whatever it is, 24, 25, 26, and he's in his prime, what are those wages going to look like? They're going to be they're going to be crazy. And the problem is the negotiators for United have allowed this wage structure to go crazy, where they had to say for Thiago, you can't come in because your wage demands are too high. But the problem is, when you have a player like Phil Jones on 150K a week, but then you have someone like Bruno that's on less, or someone like Van de Beek that's on less, and then someone like Thiago's coming in looking for more, the whole wage system is completely broken at the club. And it's the reason why you're seeing Ollie want to get rid of some of these players, because they need to fix it. But it's not an easy fix, because some of the wages are too high. People will say that the players that leave, they leave for less because they're not good enough anymore. But Memphis Depay left. He's off to Barcelona. For me, he didn't get a great run in the team anyway. Now he he wasn't as productive as we would have wanted him to be, but he's clearly not a bad player. We see the same thing with Wilfred Zaha. So he's been touted for another move, another player we let go for less, while we keep the wrong players, and the priorities for our contract negotiators are in the complete wrong areas. And in turn, it's actually ruined the way we can do signings, because other clubs see how much we pay players, other players see how much our wage structure is, and they want more. And really, it's down to those negotiators. So when people start blaming Joel Glazer for things, he's not the one that's negotiating these contracts. It's Judge and it's Woodward that are doing it. So they're the ones that are doing bad. So I don't really blame him for kind of thinking on how much money he has to spend again, because some of the contracts and some of the transfer fees, like you mentioned earlier, 1.2 billion wasted. If it was me as well, I would be thinking, I would second guessing myself if we needed to be spending all that money. Now, we as fans know how good Jadon Sancho is, and it should happen. But as a businessman that rightfully so has said that he's not a football man, he has to try and trust the people below him. And if they've made bad deals over the years, you're going to have someone that is second guessing, and that can delay the process. So for me, I think a lot of the anger needs to be pointed towards Woodward and Judge for me.
Yeah, well said, well said. And that brings us on nicely. Morning, Letty Boy MC. I hope I'm saying your name right, mate. But talk about Sarr, and that's what we're going to do now. And Neil, I'm going to come to you. Look, we've been chasing Jadon Sancho all summer, and I think, look, there are a lot of differing camps whether we should or shouldn't. It's a big outlay for a player. Personally, I know we've had a few discussions. I think he's worth the money. I think we should be going for him. I mean, what are your thoughts on sort of the Jadon Sancho transfer? Should we be moving on to, let's say, a Sarr, as Latif Boy says, or as John says as well, yeah, we should be moving on to Telles and Sarr instead of putting all that money towards Sancho? Or do you still think that Sancho is the one we should be going for?
In regards to transfers, the one I'd like us to go after, hasn't been mentioned yet today, is Upamecano. I'll probably destroyed his surname there.
Beautiful pronunciation, mate.
I'd love to get him in. I think he's the best centre half. He looks like one of the best top 2 or 3 centre halves in Europe. Be a fantastic signing. Sancho, I wrote an article a couple of months ago that I wasn't overly convinced if he's any better than. Would he stunt Greenwood's growth? That's my issue with Sancho. It always has been. I know we need depth in the squad, but Greenwood could get, I was sort of commenting on Twitter earlier, Greenwood could get 20 goals, no problem, the way he's playing. That front three looks really, really good. The problem is, and it's always the word if, is injuries. So we need some depth. But then we've got some great youth players. I'm a huge fan of the youth. I'm probably old enough to be most people's dads on here. Let the youth, bring some of the youth kids in. The kid who's just won the Jimmy Murphy Award. Bring those guys in, and let's see. Especially up front, you can sort of give them their head a bit. I think it's easy to bring younger players in up front, as it's been proven with Martial and Rashford. Crikey, I'm on the money today. So. I don't understand why we need another left back. I think we're quite strong in the left back area. If Shaw stays fit, and that's a big if because he seems to be made of glass, but he could be the best left back in England. He's got all the talent. He looks in great shape. Don't want to make that sound a bit weird, but he looks in terrific shape this season. And hopefully we can get the best out of him. And we have got cover there. We're not desperate for a left back. I wouldn't say it's a position. You don't look at the squad. What they're going to do with the right back. I think we've got the best right back in the league. Personally, I would have made Bissaka the Player of the Year, by the way. So I just transfers. The Sancho one, I actually weirdly I think we'll get him, but I don't think it's in the world if we don't. I think we can bring the kids through, and going back to Mark. Previous point, Kieran's point, that was a terrific speech about United. But none of this would have happened under Gill and Ferguson. They'd have shown some balls,
never,
and got stuck in. The loss of Gill is huge. And if you wanted a good transfer, I'd get Van der Sar from Ajax.
Completely agree.
make him the director of football and just let him go and let him do the job with Ollie.
Yeah, absolutely. That was what I said when we did sign Van der Beek, who I think is a fantastic signing. Guys, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you get involved. We've got Ved and Tar. Sarr is good, but Sancho is the best option for us. Look, I think I agree with that. But one thing I want to pick up on what Neil said is Van der Sar probably would have been our best signing this summer and probably our best signing we would have made in the last decade. I mean, that's how important it is to have footballing men in footballing positions. But Ciaran, I want to come to you about that right wing position because the Sarr news broke yesterday. I believe it was Miguel Delaney. We were talking off air. And I think the problem is that when you look at United, they've been linked with Sancho obviously all summer. And I think if United don't get Sancho, and I'm kind of, I think, in the Neil camp where some days I wake up, I say, yeah, it's happening. Because Bale's now gone to Spurs. If United weren't in for Sancho, they would have gone for Bale, wouldn't they? Let's be honest. If it was a definite no and they weren't talking to Sancho, then they would have, I don't think it would have allowed Bale to have gone so easily to Spurs. I think if United put the money in for the loan, I think he'd probably be a United player. United or Spurs, I know he's an ex-Spurs player, but I would have thought that he would have come to United. Now the Sarr rumours have come up. Do you like the idea of Sarr? A lot of people are complaining. For me, it strikes me as a bit of a Mane to Liverpool. And remember at the time, Van Gaal wanted Mane and everyone was saying, oh, he's not good enough. And he's gone on to become one of the best wingers in Europe. There's nothing wrong with going and buying within the league. And that's what United did so well under Sir Alex. They always used to buy within the league. We had this exact conversation yesterday. They bought all the best sort of, I guess, from bottom below the top six or sometimes, off Spurs. And they bought well within the league and then they were clever around Europe and they scouted well. They had Gil, who was obviously an excellent negotiator. But would you be happy with the idea, as Neil said, to go for an Upamecano, where you could probably afford Sarr for 35 million? He could rotate with Greenwood, so he wouldn't necessarily take Greenwood's spot. And Greenwood, and you just say to him, remember a few years ago when Sanchez came in, you had Martial and Rashford fighting for that left wing spot. As soon as Sanchez came in, both their form dropped off, and it was the beginning of the end from Mourinho. So would you argue that actually maybe going for Sarr is better? Do you see any truth in it, or do you think it's just a way of United having an option there just in case Sancho doesn't happen?
Look, don't get me wrong. Sancho is going to be the first option. And I think for every fan, he should be the first option because he's on a different trajectory right now than Sarr is. The whole point of bringing in that right wing position is that it gives you options. Like, you look at it and some of the injuries we had last year, look at Marcus Rashford, for example. He had a broken bone in his back that he was trying to play through. It then came out at the end of the season that he had an injured ankle. If we had someone like Sancho that was in there, he wouldn't have to be forcing himself to play through some of those because Ollie could be like, okay, take this week off. We're going to play up front Greenwood, Martial and Sancho, which would be great. And then it gives him the opportunity to rest up because that's the problem with Rashford is he hasn't had a break. And every single time there's a bit of a break between the season, he's recovering from an injury or he's playing in competition for England. And really, the lad just needs a chance to recuperate. And by having more options, that's the whole point of, I think, us going in for Sancho. Look, the deal looks like it's very difficult to finalize because for some reason United they don't want to be able to spend that money. And look, rightfully so. We are in the middle of a pandemic. You don't see many other teams going out and spending £108 million on a player or even close to it. I think Havertz is probably the closest one. But you have to remember, Chelsea couldn't sign anyone last year, so they have the budget for two transfer windows. I was talking about this with you yesterday, and Sarr was one of the names I actually brought up because he fits the mold that Solskjaer wants for that right wing position. He's explosive, he's strong, he's skillful, he has good end product. You only have to look at the Watford versus Liverpool game last year. He ripped them to shreds. He was excellent. He does remind me of kind of when Mane was playing for Southampton, that he had great production for his team, but he needed that next step. And I tweeted out this morning is that if Liverpool end up going in and getting him, they already have that replacement for Mane or Salah if they go. And for me, if we can't get Sancho, I would be going for Sarr and then going for a centre-back. Obviously, Upamecano would be great. I don't know how realistic it's going to be this season, But if you're able to get him and Sarr, I think that's one hell of a transfer window, adding to Van de Beek. But obviously, the first priority should be Sancho. But to a certain point in time, the club need to know when this deal is not happening and be able to actually go after the alternatives. I think it's probably, you're going to hit the end of September. If nothing happens, no kind of advancements in that deal, I think the club need to move on to their next target, because you can't be trying to force in deals in the last 2 to 3 days of the window.
Yeah, completely agree. I just think that it's the incompetence thing. I mean, look, hi mate, G-Ray, K16. Everyone's got such difficult names to pronounce, so it's not like I can't read. It's just that they're all like numbers and letters. So apologies, I can read, so don't worry. But the hysteria from fans is a joke. Look, I tweeted something similar the other day, and I think everyone is entitled to feel the way they do, because what you're seeing is you're looking at other clubs spending money, and there is ambition. There seems to be a plan. We know that Ollie's done what he's got to do to get into the top 4. We know what he needs. It's quite obvious. No one's asking for 7 transfers like Chelsea. They're just asking for United to be efficient in the market, buy 4 players, and just give the manager the best opportunity to build what he's doing, because there's progress there. There is definitely cause for excitement. But I think, there is an overreaction as well, as we mentioned at the beginning, and I just think that that's not needed, because there is a lot of positives. But Neil, I'm going to come over to you. I mean, MacArthur says, hello, mate. Ruben Diaz. I love Ruben Diaz. I think he's a fantastic player. But I believe that United's interests went with Jose, and I wouldn't be surprised in the future, especially with Spurs' centre-back options, to see Jose go in there next season for Ruben Diaz. Fantastic player, ball-playing centre-back. The only worry you have with, I think, players, especially defenders coming from Portugal, because Lindelof looked an absolute world-beater in Portugal. Phenomenal play if you look at some of the videos, but again, it's that physicality piece under the high ball, which you might see with Diaz. But look, I think he's a fantastic player. Neil, I'm going to come to you, because obviously it hasn't really been the best 24. Oh, Neil, you're getting some love from Usman. Is that Neil? Yes, it is.
I'm surprised he's up.
Yeah, to be fair. Welcome back. Yeah, it's great to have Neil back. And thanks, Usman. Thanks for contributing. He's one of our great hosts as well. Make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Some fantastic shows coming your way all through the season. So it's been the best. It hasn't been the best sort of 24 or 48 hours, I would say, as a United fan. We've seen a massive reaction on Twitter, as we've been saying. But look, Thiago was one person. I mean, I was quite disappointed, Neil, to be honest, with Thiago, because I thought that was one we definitely could have gone for. And it seemed that United have had an interest, but didn't push forward for it. Is that a signing that you would have wanted to see us go for? Or are you of the view that if they don't want to pay for United, I don't want them at the club?
Yes, if they don't want to come to the biggest club in the world, then they can jog on it, go somewhere else. I mean, it's the badge that says it all. If they don't want to play for United and play for that badge and play on that hallowed turf, then I'm not bothered, and they can go somewhere else. I don't think he fits the mould in terms of the age group of the players that Ollie's trying to sign. He's 29, probably wants 3-4 year contract, probably wants 250 grand a week, and we're back into that. Exactly what we were talking with Ciaran. You're going to get paying on stupid money, and I think we're well stocked in midfield. I think the midfield 3, we got backup with McTominay, Matic, Fred. I mean, I saw a fantastic rumour this morning. Apparently, we're interested in Sami Khedira.
Khedira. Oh, that is
33.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. I mean, that's just the Sun just talking utter rubbish, and they're very good at doing that. Give them, they're excellent at doling out a load of rubbish to the Sun. He is a world-class player, no dispute. But if he doesn't want to play for United, then that's it. And I always thought, we said the other day, my opinion was, I always thought it was Liverpool written all over it, because they were in earlier than we were. And I don't know whether we were just toying with Liverpool and trying to up the fee. But I'm not too sure how serious we were.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Thiago, I always say this: United, for most summers, they don't really have a plan. But I think there is a list. People have to remember, there was Gabriel we looked at as well. There's a list. United have a list of players for each position. You have A, B, and C options. I don't think Thiago was ever actually on the list, because I don't think anyone thought he would be available. But he's one of those, I think, where you do scrap what's on the list. This is my personal opinion. I think he's world class, as Usman said, and I think United probably should have gone in for him. But yeah, if he wanted Liverpool, he wanted Klopp, he wanted to play, for Klopp, and he wanted to play for a club probably, which is as difficult as it says. Sorry guys, I need to wash my mouth out after this. But Liverpool are better placed to challenge for the title right now and the Champions League. So look, at his age as well, it was a difficult one, but I don't think United fans should be too upset about it, because I don't think he was on the list of like a Sancho, a definite option. But Ciaran, I'm going to move on. I know Neil said that he would prefer a centre back instead of a left back. He doesn't think we need a left back. Look, I think Shaw's a good player. I don't think Shaw is a title-winning left back, if I'm honest. I don't like Brandon Williams at left back, but we've seen Reguilon off to Spurs, and we've spoken about this many times about the buyback clause, so I'm actually not going to go into it. I just want to ask you, though, does it frustrate you that United know you can get a very good addition in Telles, in Swiftly? No one's really going for him. It could be 18 to 20 million pounds, but they still won't do it. Does that suggest to you that actually United's finances aren't the best and they're putting all their eggs in the Sancho basket?
It depends, because I think right now there's a lot of things that are holding up. I think the likes of Chris Smalling still not being gone is one that they probably expected to happen. Same thing with Romero. I think they expected him to be gone as well by this stage. So that I think they were going to use some of those fees with the kind of defensive options, which would have been fine to bring in Alex Telles. Look, Telles gives us a different option at wing back. He gives us more of an attacking threat. His numbers speak for themselves. While Shaw he was much better last year compared to the previous couple of seasons, he still is injured way too much for me. And it seems every time he gets a big run in the team, starts playing well, he gets injured. And we've seen the likes with Brandon Williams where, yes, he's right-footed on the left, but at least he can cover both sides. You have Ethan Laird coming through the academy, but there's been rumours that he might go out on loan this year. But he's also one that he's been getting a lot of muscle injuries as of late as well, and has been out for long periods of time. So the problem is I don't think there's anyone you can really rely on to be there for the whole season. I think we're lucky in the fact that we got the Aaron Wan-Bissaka deal done. Like Neil said, I think he was one of the best players in our team last year. It seemed like up until maybe lockdown, I don't think he had a bad game or two. Then I think he just kind of ran out of steam towards the end of the season. But again, I think we just need more attacking. We need a more attacking element on that left back position. And Shaw's kind of, in terms of his attacking ability, he's nowhere near before he had that terrible injury. And I've said it before, defensively, okay, he's fine, he's solid. But for me, I don't think he does enough in the attacking side of the game, which we badly need, because you can see it. Shaw always goes in the same areas that Marcus Rashford does, and it really doesn't provide much for us. At the end of the day, he hasn't gotten a goal or an assist this season. So at that point, you need something better.
Yeah.
And that's why I would say bringing in a left back is important. I don't think it's the biggest priority. I think the right wing position is the big one that needs to be done.
Yeah, fantastic response. And I think it's I am Ollie, sir, instead of I am Molly, sir. I'm guessing that's your name. Hi, mate. Nice to see you on the stream. Our problems are giving so many average players huge wages. Yeah, look, we know that. We've discussed that in huge depth. Ciaran did a phenomenal analysis. Neil did as well at the beginning. And look, it is a massive problem. But look, United are in a decent shape going into the season. The only problem is that if one of the front three get injured, United could probably do with even if Pogba and Bruno got injured, now we got Van der Beek. But I think that is the worry, that you're then looking at Dan James, Igalo. There's not much else. I've said this before. I've spoken to someone who said to me that United are working on transfers. So I expect two to come in. Whether that's Sancho is another question. But guys, look, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I know we've gone a bit over time. I've got one more topic, which is away from transfers. But it's just been such a great chat with two great guests.
Can I just make a point? Just a quick point from an old man. I see where Ciaran's coming from at the left back. But I've always been a belief. I want my defenders to defend. That's their first priority. The six players going forward, if there's not enough ability in those six to score enough goals for us to win games, then something's gone seriously wrong with those six. So I understand what you're saying about Shaw. Wan-Bissaka won't score goals. He's a brilliant defender, amazing defender.
One of the best.
Probably the best man-to-man defender we've had in years.
Yeah.
And all I want the back four to do is keep clean sheets and keep that going and let the front six go and play. That's what Fergie used to do. Solid back four. Gary Neville never scored goals. Irwin scored the odd goals and took the penalties. Everett didn't score many goals. But the front six, by God, could they play? And that's what we want. I want my defenders to defend first and foremost. Yes, it's nice to, they could be attacking left backs and that, but defend first and foremost. That's the only point I'll disagree with Ciaran.
No, that's a good point. That was something that we actually got frustrated at for years with the right back position, that we had Valencia there, was decent enough, but again, there was problems defending. Remember when Evra was coming to the end of his career, we were all wanting him to be replaced because he couldn't get back anymore. Look, I completely agree. I think the modern fan now, they look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, who just gets assists for fun, and they just want us to do that. And look, I agree. Where I will disagree with you, Neil, is that I think when you, as G-Ray K16 says, defenders need to do more in the modern game. I would probably agree with that. I completely agree that defense, you're a defender, so the first thing you have to do is defend. But I think with the way United are playing, if Wan-Bissaka is going to be the one that sits a bit deeper and he wants the left fullback to go further up, I think you want to see more attacking output from that left fullback. But Ray agrees with you though, Neil. But there is a balance to key. That's my point. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And he also says Trent can't defend. That's another thing as well, which we all know. Yeah, exactly. So, look, let's move on to the last final point. I know we've gone over time, but you know what? I've had such a great time talking to you both. I know the listeners are enjoying it as well. Always nice to get a bit of different perspective. So let's talk about the academy, some non-transfer news. Neil, we spoke about Mengi, didn't we, a few days ago? He's now been given the number 43 shirt, which is fantastic. I know I want a centre-back. I want Upamecano any day of the week. But, I just think that United actually have a player here, which obviously Ollie rates highly. He's compared him to De Ligt. I think that's a little, yeah. I mean, look, he sees him every day. We don't get to see him every day. He could very possibly see himself sitting in that starting centre-back position 6 months' time next to Maguire, because if Tuanzebe can't keep fit, again, massive fan. And also, I think that Lindelof's a good player, but it doesn't work. As Ray says here, thank you for contributing again, mate. It's great to have you on. Mengi is special. I think he is special. We got to relax. We got to take some time. But Ciaran, I'll come to you first before I go to Neil for the final word. But how encouraging is it to see that there is a clear pathway for these youth teams and youngsters to come in to the first team? Because I think when you look around at the other top 6 teams in Europe, I don't see as many players breaking through. You've got to have a nice mix of youth and of quality. We do still need to buy, but it's much more enjoyable to go and see Mason score 20 goals than it is to go and see like a Dan James or even a Sancho score 20, because Mason's one of our own. So what has Ollie done that's allowed these academy players to go through? I'm going to give you about 2 minutes if that's all right, just because we've run over time.
Yeah, of course. Look, Ollie is doing what the culture of the club requires. We spent way too long, especially under Mourinho, not giving young players the chance to come through. Again, at the end of it, this is what is the backbone of this club for years. And people will complain now because they're obsessed with transfers that we need more quality, we need this. But you see with the likes of Ajax even, they bring through their young players all the time and end up selling them for big fees. You look at Mason has come through. Look, you're not always going to get a Mason Greenwood. They don't come along that often. What happened with the class of 92 was you don't see that all the time. But there's talent in those young players. You look at Ted and Mengi, and anybody that's seen him for the under 23s or even the under 18s can see his ability, can see if he's allowed to progress, that he can be starting in that back four. If no more additions come in, there's no reason why he can't. I've said it for the last 2 to 3 years, that I would love to see a game where Axel and someone like Mengi are put together, because it might be in a cup game here or there, but because their actual abilities, they really gel with one another. They have different abilities. When we're looking at it, we always compare our defenders now to Rio and Vidic, and that's what they have. Axel's the more calming presence, very much like Rio, while Mengi is kind of that colossus in the back. And he's played excellently over the last year, and he completely deserves his promotion. What I hate is when fans say, "Oh, he's only getting promoted because we're not buying a centre back." Look, at the end of the day, he would have been promoted regardless if we bought a centre back, because he's been that impactful for both the under 23s, but also when he's come through and training with the first team. He didn't get his debut for no reason.
Yeah, mate, look, fantastic summary. And Paulina, hi, how are you? No, that's not Paulina, that's G-Ray16. Sorry, mate, I keep on pressing on the name, but he'll need to progress. You're right, mate. Axel looks promising at Villa. It's because you're making so many great comments, mate, so keep them coming. And Paulina, Tellez, look, we mentioned Tellez. I think he's on the list. I think United will sign 2 players. I'm going to put my neck out. If they don't, then, well, it's not my fault, so don't come at me. But look, I think Tellez is definitely someone who will be one of the options. And I think, look, United will bring in 2 players. It could be a Sarr and a Tellez. It could be a Sancho and no one. The money isn't as free-flowing as it is for likes of Chelsea. But we're going to go on to the final point. And I want to give Neil the final word because, you know, he's got some great experience. He can talk to us a bit more about why the Jimmy Murphy Academy Player of the Year award is so prestigious. I know Alanga won it, and Barista, hi, mate. Alanga is a player giving me the best chills. The young man has got an aura around him. I confess I haven't seen him as much. I know Ciaran's watched him more, and Ciaran's a fan. But Neil, how important is this Jimmy Murphy Academy Player of the Year award, and why should we be excited that someone like Alanga has won it, and he's such a great prospect going forward?
Jimmy Murphy's probably, in terms of the history of the club, the greatest spotter of talent we've ever had. Obviously, massively involved with the Babes and the rebuild of the club after Munich. And Munich's the reason we are the club we are. The Babes won 5 FA Youth Cups on the spin. Average age when they played in the first team was 2021. You'll never see the likes of that again. And that was down to Jimmy Murphy's vision, along with Matt Busby. And to win the Jimmy Murphy Award, it's not like winning, best youth player at, your local Parks team. This means something. This comes with, I agree with Ray. This means something. This comes with, you're a real top player if you win this award. And you better honour the fact that it's the Jimmy Murphy Award. This isn't some Joe Schmo from around the corner. This is Jimmy Murphy. And he's as big as any person, any player, manager in the history of this club. And people need to understand that. If you don't know who Jimmy Murphy is, go and Google it and read the books and find out about the genius that Jimmy Murphy was.
Absolutely. Neil, that was a fantastic way to end. Look, I just think that we get so wrapped up in transfers that we forget sometimes about the club and what makes a club great. And it's always been about the youth. And look, no one's saying we should just rely on youth. Obviously, Alan Hansen, you can't win anything with kids. And obviously we did. But you're not going to see the class of 92 all the time. But what made United great was the fact that they invested in the academy. These players came through, and you had players in the squad that were part of the fabric of the club, and you need that. You need that going forward. You can't. We saw for years we had so many players that were coming in. I don't want to call them mercenaries, but over the last 7 years, who just didn't get it, and they didn't care. They came and they collected their wage. So Neil, that is a fantastic way to end. Ciaran, you've got anything to add to that?
Yeah, just on what you said there, those players coming in, they prefer to play for the name on the back of the shirt instead of the name on the front. And that's what we need to change. And that's what I think Ollie's been doing.
Absolutely, mate. Guys, what a fantastic show. Thank you very much for both of you for coming on. I know we've gone over. We're about nearly 45 minutes, but it's been truly enlightening. Neil, you gave some fantastic insight. I'm a younger fan, so it's always great to listen and to learn things. Ciaran, thank you for coming on as well, mate. And to all the listeners, thank you so much for getting involved. Honestly, it's been absolutely brilliant. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll be doing Today at United pretty much every day of the week, Monday to Friday. So make sure you get involved. Thank you, Ray, for all the love, and thank you for all the comments. And we're not going to be clout chasers. We're not doing this for views. We're doing this because we just want to talk honestly and openly and just calmly about United. Because you know what? The situation is not as bad. For the first time in 7 years, I'm genuinely calm into the season. I want new signings, but I just want to see United play. We all do. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Have a wonderful day. Make sure you support United tomorrow and don't go tweeting about this player if we end up going a goal down. But I don't want to be preachy. But anyway, make sure you hit the like button and we'll see you next time.